RRAT, have you ever thought of just winding this crew up and rolling back into the department?
No, Senator.
No studies been done on bringing it back into the department?
No, Senator.
Okay. All right, so part of the Air Services Australia Terminal Control Unit Strategic Business Case May 2014, ATCs will be assigned. How many ATCs will be assigned to the Adelaide TCU in Melbourne after integration? So, integrate it, take it to Melbourne, how many ATCs will be in there?
Senator Jason Harfield, Acting Chief Executive Officer. Initially on transfer, it will be a 1-to-1 ratio.
So does that mean 19?
Yes, Senator.
So how many are in Adelaide at the moment?
Mr Hood?
I believe, Senator, currently it's 18 TCU staff, but it fluctuates a little bit depending on whether there's trainees or not. Yeah.
You're taking out 18 in Adelaide and putting 19 in Melbourne.
As I said, the numbers will fluctuate, Senator.
Between what parameters will they fluctuate?
On staff turnover, Senator, so it's quite common for staff to be transferred to another approach unit or another area, in which case we.
So I suppose my point is that there'll be 18 and 19 required to open the required number of consoles, morning, afternoon and evening shift, with their days off, irrespective of where the service is provided.
Oh, that's correct, Senator.
So where are the efficiencies again?
So over time, Senator, for example,
you got a definition of overtime? Is that like? That's what it means to Senator Bullock. Overtime means time and a half. So are we talking about a budget year or a number of budget years?
Senator, the efficiencies of transferring both the Cairns and Adelaide terminal control units to Melbourne and Brisbane respectively is based on the fact that currently both the civil air traffic system is coming to an end of life. As a result of it coming to an end of life and us moving to the One Sky thing, we've had a look at seeing what is the best footprint that we can possibly operate under, and when we've done the sums is that there is considerable savings in not having to replace the equipment in Adelaide and Cairns.
So 30% of ATCs over 55?
So I have to take that on notice. However, the demographics of the air traffic control, operational air traffic controllers is, my understanding, around about 48, 49.
So you're going to need to have some costs incurred in your training costs to address this age profile in the integration.
Senator, we will have to be continually training air traffic controllers throughout the coming years, regardless of whether Adelaide or Cairns terminal control unit stayed in situ or it moved, just with the replacement of staff.
So have you included in the integration project training costs?
That's my understanding, Senator.
So section 5.1 of the business case attributes 6.5 million to training costs to meet the transition requirements, compared to 7.3 million in 4.3 previously.
Senator, that would be the cost of transitioning and the training resulting in both Cairns and Adelaide terminal control units and transferring to Melbourne and Brisbane respectively.
So do you think those training costs allocated in the project are adequate?
That is my understanding, Senator. However, as we further refine the planning around the terminal control unit integration, those assumptions would be refined, and as we're going through, we are refining the business case.
Okay. So adding you're planning on 17 training replacements in the Adelaide TCU in short term, almost the entire current staffing level. And in section 4.3 of the business case, you've budgeted for 7.3 million to replace the ageing workforce, which numbered between 7 and 14, but in section 5.1 you've only budgeted for 6.5. Is there a discrepancy in your business case then?
Senator, I have to take that on notice. I don't have the detail in front of me.
Okay. So what does this project actually cost? The direct project costs associated with the recommended option, are they 82.1 million?
Senator, maybe if I could address those issues. The fundamentals of the business case are really around the avoided cost of replacing the equipment and the infrastructure in those two different locations. As you've observed, the ageing profile of the air traffic controllers means that regardless of where we put it, given that we're talking about a like-for-like replacement, we're still going to have to train that number of controllers. The way the business case is presented is showing those in two slightly different locations as you've observed. There will be a slight increase to actually train and transition that contingent of air traffic controllers to have them then work in the Melbourne environment, which is that difference that you've observed. The major change is in the cost of the facilities and the equipment, which in the business case we estimated to be in the order of $33.5 million that we don't expect then in a net sense to have to invest in those two locations.
And what's the split between Cairns and Adelaide in that $33 million?
19.6 for Adelaide and 13.9 for Cairns.
And over how many budget years would those savings be realised?
So the business case is set over a period of about 15 years.
So over 15 years you expect to save 19.6 in Adelaide and 13.9 in Cairns.
We'd expect to make those savings actually over the next 5 or so years because we wouldn't need to be putting or upgrading those facilities which would otherwise be in our plans.
Okay, so if you didn't redeploy and retrain, how does that, and left people in Adelaide, how does that compare with the expenditure? I mean, are you saying that there is a saving in Adelaide of 19.6 million that's going to be made over 5 years now?
That particular saving, yes. We would expect probably that there are also some savings in terms of overall supervision going forward. So while the line staff are unaffected, I think there are some benefits in terms of supervision and other aspects across the transition.
So there is an avoidable cost here, but you're saying that that's outweighed by the savings on upgrade of equipment in Adelaide and Cairns. So, I mean, you've got to relocate people, you've got to have PRs,
yes.
you've got to
Yes.
hire new people, train new people if people don't go, and
Precisely.
all of those. So you're assuring me that all of those costs, totaled up, have been thoroughly evaluated and are significantly outweighed by the ongoing operational savings in equipment and
Yes,
upgrade.
Senator. I think as we've quoted in the business case, we would expect that our terminal navigation prices at those two locations, if we were to avoid those costs, would result in prices to the industry being in the order of 5 to 10% lower going forward than if we actually made those investments in those locations.
And you're also assuring me that the ATC operations in Melbourne will not incur upgrades in equipment and facilities and training and costs which outweigh your business costs?
No, Senator, the figures that I quoted are the net savings, so we expect to make some upgrades in Melbourne, but we expect to make significantly more upgrades and investment in effectively new facilities in both Cairns and Adelaide as we're doing in the case of Melbourne and Brisbane in any event.
So if there's little change in the number of ATCs required to do the Adelaide TCU, how is there a staffing efficiency or a rostering efficiency of 4.2 million, as per section C, achieved if there is no change in the number of ATCs?
Primarily, we expect to be able to absorb that through savings in the supervision rather than in the line staff over time.
Okay,
So over a 15-year period.
so you're saying there's a saving of 4.2 million in rostering efficiency, mainly in supervision, over a 15-year period?
Yes.
So is that 5%? Would you be going to put your job on the line? I'll bet you it's a balls up. I will bet you.
Senator, the numbers...
That is rubbish. To think that over 15 years you'll save 5%. Best of luck. Put your job on the line.
Senator, we're out consulting on prices at the moment,
I'll bet you are.
and based on the numbers that we've done in this business case, that's the outcome that we're standing by.
No. Not your fault. Crap.
Okay, so how many supervisors did Adelaide TCU currently have in Adelaide? So you're going to save 4.2 on supervision. How many supervisors do the Adelaide TCU currently have?
I think
The answer
if we
is
can
4, providing
supervisors,
12 hours of shift managed coverage.
Yeah, I think over a 15-year period, our estimates were based on about saving of one position over the 15-year
So
period.
they've currently got 4 in Adelaide, 12 hours of shift managed. How many supervisors would the Adelaide TCU have whilst it's in Melbourne?
I'd need to defer to Mr Hood in terms of
So
levels of
we're still
supervision.
revising in the stage 2 business case what that looks like and how the TCU will be integrated into the operation in Melbourne.
So is the argument that Adelaide TCU will share supervision with other groups?
That's the long-term aim, Senator. It's the experience we had with Canberra TCU 20 years ago when we took the Canberra approach unit out of Canberra and relocated that to Melbourne. We found that there was some rostering efficiencies in both supervision and, in fact, in the air traffic control roster over time.
So if there's less supervision or more efficient supervision, does that simply mean that there'll be a reduction in service?
The service will be exactly the same, Senator. Supervision, in its true definition, provides a lot of support services, changing restricted area maps, etc. So it's not supervision as per somebody stands over somebody else's shoulder.
But if you've got a level of service now which includes 4 supervisory roles, and we go to Melbourne and we're not going to have that 4, so there is a question about whether that's a reduction in service or not.
So, Senator, the 4 people that are providing supervision in Adelaide are providing supervision through a certain period of the day, certain hours of coverage, and we require 4 people to actually cover that, people with 1 morning, 1 afternoon, 1 evening and 1 off. In moving it to Melbourne, we were able to gain efficiencies where the supervision is still provided for the same period of time. However, we were able to do rostering efficiencies. For example, at this moment in time, Melbourne Terminal Control Unit or Melbourne Approach is supervised by the same supervisor as Canberra Approach at the same time. So the supervision and the coverage of supervision is exactly the same as it will be in Adelaide.